Welcome to another episode of the Tech and Real Estate Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Jason Baca, a creative finance expert who has been making waves in real estate with his no money down strategies. In this episode, you'll learn how Jason has successfully closed multiple deals using creative financing, all while maintaining his full-time job. We'll dive deep into his journey, including the strategies he's used to find profitable deals. And if you're curious about building wealth through real estate without relying on traditional bank loans, this is the episode for you. All right, let's get started. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. I am so excited to have this conversation today, as I've been fortunate to discuss with you previously all about creative finance, how you've dived into the space in a short span of time. But before we go into it, would love to hear a little bit more about your background.
So I got into real estate a couple years ago. I still, to this day, technically have my day job. I'm married. My wife and I have 5 kids, if you can believe it. We had them like back to back to back. So they're all still very little, and got into real estate just because, I guess why everybody gets into real estate, which is wanting to make more money and get out of your W-2 job, that kind of a thing. By God's grace, we've been able to do 6 or 7 deals now, all mostly creative finance, whether that's we acquired the property with creative finance or we sold the property with creative finance. Some people don't realize you can do creative finance on the back end as well. And been able to make, multiple 6 figures now in net profit in these deals, which is cool. In a handful of deals just on the side in addition to my day job.
Great.
So
Love
it's been going pretty good, and I can't wait to see what happens moving forward.
Did you try to venture into any other business avenues before deciding on it?
Oh yeah, there's like a whole graveyard of all the businesses I tried to start that have like died and failed. I actually, a buddy of mine and I bought a Quiznos franchise. If you remember the Quiznos sandwich shop, they were like Subway's biggest competitor. This is back when we were 21 years old. Had no idea what we were doing. Like we were in way over our heads, but we both had that entrepreneurial type of bug, and it failed miserably and ended up being this big colossal headache. And then since then, tried different businesses, online businesses, trying to do all this different stuff, and just kind of banging my head against the wall with all these things that just didn't work for so long. Eventually found real estate. I first was a real estate agent for about like a month until I realized this is not for me. I don't want to do this. And I was pretty bad at it. So eventually got into real estate investing. Again, this is in addition to my day job, and I've just been constantly trying for a long time to like build a business, do my own thing, have the financial freedom and time freedom that everybody gets into entrepreneurial efforts for. And I think I finally found something that works. Like after a decade plus of all of my failed efforts, it's like, hey, I'm actually making money at this real estate stuff. This is pretty cool. So I think I'm going to stick with this for now.
And although there may not be a blueprint of how to make your Quiznos like the best and most successful, there is a blueprint to real estate. And that's what a lot of newbies may not understand, is that there's been a ton of people who've done different strategies ahead of you. And sometimes just partnering, learning, researching on your own could really help. So how did you start the knowledge process before you decided to get a deal?
Well, I guess there are different ways that people learn, right? Some people like, don't explain it to me, like I just need to get in it and do it, and then I'll learn. I'm the exact opposite. So I like to study and know everything that's going to happen before it actually happens, and all the different what ifs and this, that, whatever, before I finally put my big toe in the water, which is not always the best approach to life or learning or anything. So, but I did spend probably a year just watching YouTube videos, kind of like you might be watching this YouTube video right now, whoever's listening, and just learning what wholesaling is, learning what creative finance is, what is subject to, what does that mean, seller financing, how does that work, and just really kind of got into the space where whether I'm like listening to podcasts, whether I'm driving in the car, I just kind of wrap my head around how does this whole real estate thing work, and how do you make money in it, and what's the best way to get started. And after about, I don't know if it was quite a year, but 6 months, 9 months, almost a year, I was like, okay, I need to actually do this. I feel like I understand the nuts and bolts of mostly how it goes. But at some point in time, you got to actually do it, right? So I found a mentor, got hooked up with a mentor who does a lot of creative finance deals in kind of the area where I live, which is super small town Pennsylvania. And as you know, real estate's very market specific. The laws are very state specific a lot of times. And so I got connected with him because he was doing deals, creative finance deals in my area, in these little small markets in Pennsylvania, and spent about 2 years with him. I just ended like a 2-year anniversary, you could say, working with him. And after all my YouTube knowledge, I got connected with him and got to actually do the thing. You know, I got to actually put out some marketing and talk to sellers and go on appointments and put properties under contract and work through closings and getting the closings done and, you know, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, basically got started learning a bunch kind of peripherally on YouTube. And then eventually, yes, I would highly recommend finding a mentor, somebody who is already doing the thing that you want to do at a level above you, and learn from them, work with them, partner with them on deals, and get going that way. Because real estate, as I've learned, really is a team sport. It's really hard to be successful in real estate, making money just by yourself with your phone and your laptop, like, you know, on an island somewhere. Like you're going to need other people to be a part of it.
Yeah, a ton of it is
and
relationship.
Having a mentor and community is
touch on
essential.
A bit more as well as your deals. But first, I see a lot of folks, so they go interested in real estate, right? They're searching through podcasts, kind of like you did, YouTube videos, learning. Then they get to actually, all right, I'm going to take action. And they realize, oh my gosh, these properties on market are so much more expensive than they were in the books that I read that were created, 4 years ago. So then they start to look online, how do I get into real estate with less money down? And a lot of people land on creative. So could you give a little bit of an overview of what creative is and how does it kind of solve some of the main pain points when it comes to being able to put more money down for a property?
I mean, creative financing, you could write books upon books about what it is and how it works and why it's beneficial. Basically, the best way to explain creative financing is to explain traditional financing that we're all familiar with. Like you said, a house goes on market. On market just simply means you have a real estate agent who's representing the seller. Off market means that the seller is unrepresented. You're talking to them directly. So, but typically, most all real estate transactions, someone's going to hire a real estate agent. They're going to put their house on market, and then somebody is going to either buy that house with cash, or they're going to go to a bank and borrow the money to go buy the house, technically with cash, right? It's the bank's cash. And then the bank is going to say, okay, we're going to give you this money so you can buy this house with cash, and you will pay us back over the next 30 years at 7% interest and, amortized this particular way. That's how most traditional real estate is bought and sold. That seller is selling a house. They're going to be compensated with cash. Their old mortgage is going to get paid off. And they're going to be able to keep the net after closing costs and real estate commissions and all those sorts of things. The net is their pocket money, basically, and what they gained on the house. That's traditional. In creative financing is basically just an umbrella term that means not buying a house that way, not buying a house with cash, and not borrowing the full amount of cash that you need to buy the house from someone else, like a bank or a lender of some sort. So creative financing is anything and everything in between. But the easiest way to explain it, like the most common ways that people use creative financing, it's like two wings of a bird. Like this big wing over here is what's called subject to, and this wing over here is what's called seller financing. There are technically other things that fit within the umbrella of creative financing, like lease options and, wrap mortgages and all that kinds of stuff. But those are the two big ones, especially when you're talking about acquiring a property. Subject to just literally means that you're going to buy the house subject to existing liens or mortgages or debt that's on the house. So the deed, there are two parts of the house, right? A deed and the debt. The deed is who owns the house. The debt is who owes for the house. And almost 100% of the time, those two names are the exact same, right? Mike Jones owns the house and Mike Jones owes the bank for the house. But they don't always have to have the same person's name on them. You can buy a house subject to Mike's existing debt, but the deed transfers to you and you become the new owner. So you're the owner. Mike is going to leave the debt in his name and you're going to make payments on his behalf. It's basically a way of borrowing or buying real estate, saying, I know there's a mortgage on this house and it's not going to get paid off at closing. So, and I'm buying it subject to that. The other big wing of creative financing is seller financing. The easiest way to explain this would be somebody owns a house. Let's say it's worth $200,000. They've paid it off for 30 years. It's free and clear. But let's just say if they were to hire a real estate agent and put everything on the market because the house needs a lot of work, et cetera, they're not going to get $200,000, right? But they're stuck on their price. They really want $200,000. So you come to them and you say, I'll pay you $200,000. I'll give you your purchase price if you finance the house for me. Now, the reason why this is sometimes confusing, at least I used to be confused, is because they're not actually giving you any money. Like when you think of someone financing something, you think of like them giving you money or lending you money. Instead, what they are doing is they are allowing you to pay off your $200,000 debt that you just created with them, or the equity. They're going to get the equity out of the house over time, like a bank would. So instead of me giving you a check for $200,000 at closing, I'm going to pay you $2,000 a month every month until the debt's paid off, something like that. And let's just say in this particular instance, the seller's good with that because they would make way less money if they sold it otherwise. So subject to taking over a house or buying a property, subject to existing debt. And then seller financing, no banks involved. The seller is basically becoming the bank, and they're going to let you pay off whatever it is that you owe for the house over time,
subject
like a bank
to
would.
seller finance. And that leads to the next question. Why would any seller want to do seller finance, right? Don't you want all your cash at hand in one instance? So what are some of the benefits where it's a win-win on both sides?
Right. So on my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about the subject to deals that I do. And one of the biggest comments I always get from people who are just getting into real estate and just don't know, like I used to not know, so there's no judgment, is why would anybody in the world deed the house over to you and keep the debt in their own name in a subject to transaction? Or why would anybody in the world let you pay them off over a long period of time instead of just selling the house for cash? There are 100 different reasons why somebody would actually prefer to do something like that as far as a seller. The simplest explanation is because the alternative is worse. Why would anybody deed the house over to you, you become the new owner, and they keep the debt in their name for who knows how long? Because the alternative is worse, right? So I'll break down each scenario. Typically, in subject to transactions, that where you're going to find, people who are willing to sell subject to are people either, let's say there is no equity in the property. So they just bought it, let's say within the last year. Most of their mortgage payments over the last 10 months or whatever is just interest. And they bought it at the top of the market. So they paid $300,000 for the house and it's worth about $300,000, right? But because they didn't create any equity, sellers usually are the ones who have to pay to sell their house. They have to pay the real estate commissions. They have to pay the closing costs. Usually there's no law that says that they have to, but this is typically how real estate is bought and sold. So, and it's sometimes up to about 10%. So to sell a $300,000 house, 10% of that would be $30,000. Usually that's taken out of the equity. So if somebody only owes $100,000 and their house is worth $300,000, that $30,000 that they're going to have to spend to sell their house comes out of their equity. So they don't actually pay it, right? It just gets deducted from their net proceeds at the end of closing. With subject to, if there's no equity in it, basically, they would have to come out of pocket $30,000 at closing to sell their house. They don't make $30,000. They have to write a check to someone else for $30,000 to sell their house. And so a lot of times for a seller, especially if they're in a life situation where they got to sell right now, they're like, do I want to sell right now and pay $30,000, which a lot of times they don't have, or do I want to sell the house and let someone else take over my mortgage for me, and they're going to pay all the closing costs and they're going to pay the real estate agents, they're going to take care of everything. I pay $0 at closing and I just can hand over the keys and walk away, right? It depends on the life circumstance, but that's one reason. Another big reason is foreclosure. Somebody bought a house, they have a mortgage on the house, something happens in their life, they can't make the payments anymore, and now they're staring down a foreclosure because they're starting to miss payments. And they're thinking to themselves, well, I either do nothing and I'm going to go through foreclosure, my credit's going to get destroyed, and I'm going to lose the house anyway, or I can sell to this investor who's going to step in, catch up all my payments, start making my mortgage payment for me, save me from foreclosure, save me from losing the house, maybe even put a little money in my pocket at closing and increase my credit along the way. So instead of my credit getting destroyed, they're going to make payments for me, full monthly payments on time, every time. And my credit's actually going to go up over the next year or two. So again, the simplest answer to subject to why would anybody sell that way is because the alternative is worse in their life situation. I'll try to rattle through this because I realize I'm talking a lot here, but seller finance, why would somebody do that? A lot of times the best candidates you're going to find for seller finance are people who don't actually live in the home that they own. In other words, landlords. So they rent the house out, or it's maybe somebody inherited a house. Sometimes they don't want a cash offer. Maybe they want something higher. So the reason why is because, number one, typically landlords are a little bit more numbers focused. And although I'm not a certified CPA or tax attorney, I'm not licensed, generally what can happen is instead of paying a big tax whenever you sell the house, like let's say the $200,000 house, let's say they own it free and clear, but they've not lived in it within the last 5 years. Whatever they bought the house for, and the difference between those two numbers, let's say they bought it for $50,000, now it's worth $200 all these years later. That $150,000 that they gain at closing is going to be taxed, right? They're going to be taxed at the $150,000, and it's going to push them up into a higher tax bracket, which means they're going to pay even more tax because it's a higher tax bracket. So the percentage is more. But a lot of times what's very appealing to landlords is I can sell you the house on seller financing. You're going to pay $200,000, but it's going to be over time. And instead, I only pay tax on the money that comes in when it comes in. So on the monthly payments over the course of a year. So you can actually kind of keep yourself out of a higher tax bracket by receiving less money every single year. And a lot of landlords really like that monthly check, right? One of the reasons they hate to give up the property is because they really like checks coming in every month. So you tell them, hey, I'm going to send you a check every month. It's not going to be as much as you used to get when you were responsible for the property and had to manage it, but it will still be, it's the most passive form of income you could possibly have because you no longer own the home. You're not responsible for it. You don't have to deal with the tenants. You just become the bank and you just sit back and collect the mortgage payment, essentially is what it is. So most, to be fair, most all real estate, like 97%, is bought and sold on market with a real estate agent and is done with cash, right? Either the bank's cash or your own cash. Most all of it is. But there's this little sliver of the population who that does not work for and cannot work for, who are very open to creative finance solutions to buying their house. In fact, in many cases, it actually can save them from a much, much worse alternative.
Likely can usually keep more money in their pocket in instances, and they're motivated usually to do so. So this topic of creative finance, is this, 3% of people who it may help, is this new, or has this something that's been done for several years?
Well, it was new to me 2 years ago. I had never heard of this. 2 years ago when I started this whole thing, I didn't even know what a title company was. Somebody said something about title company. And I was like, what's a title company? So I'm telling you, like, if Jason, your friend Jason, can do it, like really anybody can do it. There's a learning curve. There's stuff you have to learn. Like it is a skill set that you have to learn. But once you get into it and once you understand like creative financing and you start looking at houses, you start going on appointments with sellers, you start to realize like, oh, wow, this is not like some scam, internet scam or something like that. Like it actually is an amazing way to acquire property with little to no money down. All the subject to deals we've done, I literally have not spent any money acquiring the property. And in many cases, like people are crying and thanking you for buying their house and taking over their mortgage for them. Like it's you're not ripping anybody off. It's actually really, really awesome. And yes, to your question, it has been around for a long, long time from what I understand. I can't remember the exact year the United States passed a law about the subject to or the seller financing rules. But it began a long time ago, like I think 1800s. Somebody fact check me on that. Just go to Google and figure it out. But yeah, it's even in the HUD, the United States official government HUD sheet, the settlement statement that you get at closing of where all the money comes in and goes out. Lines 203 and 503, I believe, are for their blank spaces for you to put in loans that you are taking over subject to whenever you buy the property. So it's been around long enough that it's been vetted. It's like the government knows that it's happening. They have approved of it. They've even put it on their own HUD sheets, their own settlement statements. And so, yeah, this is nothing new. It might feel new to you and therefore kind of make you nervous like it used to me. Like, I don't know about all that, like taking over someone's mortgage. You're not taking it over as in assuming it. It's staying in their name and you are paying the monthly payment for them. But once you kind of get in the thick of it, you realize actually this is very common. This is very normal. This happens every day, happens all the time. Not nearly as much as bank financed, purchases. But it does happen a lot. And if you can find those specific sellers who can benefit the most from creative finance solutions to selling their house, I love
that you mentioned that.
You can make some pretty good money
when I first started in the creative
as a real
space
estate
of
investor.
learning about it, I was like, why haven't I heard this before? Is this real? Is this something that could be obtainable? And as I researched, like you said, it's been around for decades, if not centuries, and not even just for real estate, but for many other assets as well. So definitely if you're learning about creative, there's a lot of resources out there that you could look into. But one thing that you mentioned was that you've been able to use creative to acquire deals with little to no money down. So at this time, I'd love to dive into perhaps your first deal where you were able to do this.
Here's the situation. Just so you know, most every profitable real estate transaction is going to start with the situation. Somebody is in a situation where they need somebody to buy their house from them. It usually has nothing to do with the actual house. It usually has something else going on in their life that they need to sell the house in order to fix this other thing. Like they're going through a divorce, like they have a really chronic health problem. They can't keep up with their rental properties anymore. There's always some other life situation causing them to have to sell, and they are quote unquote motivated to sell. But it always starts with the situation. So my first subject to deal, the situation was, is a young guy. He had been dating this girl for a couple of years. They decided that, we want to move in together. So they bought this house. They moved in together. He owned the home. The deed was in his name and the mortgage was in his name. But by coming together in the same house, the understanding is both of our work paychecks are going to pay the mortgage. Well, unfortunately, literally a month after moving in together, they decided to break up. And so he had just bought the house 30, 60 days ago. She's moving out, and also moving out is her paycheck, right? So now he can't afford the monthly mortgage payment anymore. He just bought the house. His dreams are shattered. He's embarrassed. He's going through a really, really hard breakup because they had been dating for a couple of years. She had a son who he was kind of like becoming like a father figure to. It's just a really, really emotionally difficult time for him. And because he couldn't afford the mortgage payment anymore, when I met him, he was right about to miss his first monthly mortgage payment, and he did miss his first monthly mortgage payment. So now he's staring down a foreclosure, possibly. He's going to lose the house that he just bought, and his girlfriend, is now gone, and he's going through this very hard situation. Now, the reason why he couldn't just hire a real estate agent and sell the house again, even though he just bought it, because it was in perfectly fine condition, is because he bought it with like low money down bank financing. In other words, he put, either 0% with a VA loan or 3.5% usually with the FHA loan. And so there was just no equity. On paper, there was like, I think $3,000 worth of equity. The house was $155,000. He bought it, top of the market, max price. It was $155,000, and he owed $152 and some change. So there was like, there's no wiggle room in there. And if you keep in mind that 10% rule, that means to sell his house, he's going to have to come up with about $15,000, right? $15,000 is 10% of 150, about $15,000 at closing to sell his house, minus, maybe $2,000 that's in there, because he doesn't have enough equity, and he had just bought it. So he's kind of he's in a bind. He's in a pinch. He's emotionally distraught. This is really, really hard. The problem is if he hires a real estate agent, not only is he going to have to pay $15,000 at closing, but it's going to take time, right? Usually the real estate agent, they want to take pictures and they put it on the market, and then they got to find a buyer, and then they go through negotiations, they do inspections, they do all of this stuff, working with title to get it closed. It's going to be at least 30 days, if not 60 or 90. It really depends on when you can get a buyer. Can they get their financing? Is the contract going to fall out? The problem is he does not have time because he's already missing mortgage payments. And the further he gets behind, the more the new buyer is going to, he's going to have to pay out of pocket when the new buyer actually buys it to catch up all his mortgage that's in arrears. And so he's stuck. He can't sell it on market with an agent. He doesn't know where to go. He's got no equity in it. He can't refinance it for a lower payment or anything like that. He doesn't want to rent it out. He doesn't want to become a landlord. And he doesn't think he can rent it for as much as the mortgage payment is, because his interest rate is in the sevens, like somewhere in there. It doesn't work, right, on so many levels. And so his only solution really is for an investor to come in and buy the property subject to, and save him from foreclosure, save him from spending $15,000 out of pocket to close, and save him from potentially this whole thing getting dragged out for months and then finally blowing up in his face in a foreclosure or a buyer who can't buy, or having to spend even more than $15,000. So subject to worked perfect for him. So I meet him. I go to the house. It's actually in fine condition. It's an older house. It's dated. Don't get me wrong. It's a bit dated. It needs an up. What do they call a facelift, right? So, but there's nothing wrong with it functionally. It's fine. It's legitimately worth $155,000 that he bought it for, and it's on a couple acres. It's a nice place. It's cute. It's quaint. So this is in comparison, by the way, to some of the houses I typically go see that are like, nightmare, like haunted houses kind of situations. I got other stories about those kinds of houses if you want later. But so I'm actually surprised. I show up at the house. I'm like, hey, this is not that bad. This is like actually it's kind of clean. Like there's nothing broken. Like this is pretty good. And so we get to talking, and I basically say, the only way that I'm going to be able to buy this house is if we do it subject to. And of course he says, what's that? So I explained it to him, and basically wrote up the contract right then and there. I gave him $1, because whenever you do a contract, you need consideration, what's called consideration. Some sort of value has to transfer hands. So I gave him $1 in consideration for the contract. And the purchase price was whatever you owe on the house, right? Which at the time was $152,000 and some change. And so basically I got the property now for $1, but we wanted to make sure that we found a buyer. This is where it's going to get kind of complicated, especially if you're just learning about creative finance for the first time. So what our intention was not to keep it as a rental, and certainly not to fix and flip it, because this is not a good market for that, but rather to seller finance to a new buyer who's going to buy it from us, and we become the bank on the transaction, right? They're now going to owe us a mortgage payment. In creative finance terms, this is often called a wrap mortgage. You're going to keep the underlying mortgage in place. Let's say his name's Josh. Josh's mortgage is going to stay in place, and then we're going to create a new mortgage around it and wrap it around to our new buyer. But we did not want to close on the contract we had with Josh, subject to, until we found our new buyer. So I basically created like a 90-day window to close. And during that 90 days, we found a new buyer who was going to buy the house from us. The new buyer bought it at a purchase price of $167, and they put $15,000 down, 10 of which was like the down payment. The others was like fees and closing costs. And so we used their $15,000 to close our contract with Josh. So to pay off all those closing costs, like, in Pennsylvania, you have to pay a 2% transfer tax. But basically, we used our new buyer's funds to close our contract with Josh, creating a spread. So our new buyer now owes us $157, but we owe Josh's bank $152. So there's now a little bit of equity in there. Josh's payment was about $1,300 a month, give or take. And our new payment coming in from our new buyer is $1,750. So that's a difference of $450 a month in cash flow, net cash flow. So we basically effectively got to buy a property where I only had to pull $1 out of my pocket at the time of signing the contract. We used the other buyer's funds to close. So we didn't have to spend any money on closing costs or anything. It's not our money. We found our other buyer first. And then we effectively got to put $15,000 in our pocket, create $5,000 worth of equity, and now it's been cash flowing $450 a month for whenever that was that we did that, 12, 16 months ago, something like that. Keeping in mind, because we are selling it on a wrap mortgage, this is a property that we are not responsible for. We don't own it, right? When your toilet gets clogged, you don't call Wells Fargo because they have the mortgage on the property, right? They don't have to manage your property. You're the owner. So with a wrap mortgage, the whoever's in the house is not your tenant, right? The deed transfers to them. They are the buyer. You just sit back and collect the payments. So it's a true $450 passive income every month now coming off that property, because we're not responsible for the property because we don't own it anymore. Technically, we only owned it for like a hot second.
That was an incredible breakdown.
From the closing of the two contracts together.
What would motivate the seller, right? Because a lot of times we just get right to the numbers of the deal, what the cash flow is, and the success part of it. But that really helps to understand the mentality of why someone would want to go through this deal, how you're solving that solution. The wrap mortgage, for those that are hearing that for the first time, don't be intimidated by it. Just gather at this moment that there are ways you can make money in real estate passively, both as the investor, where you're owning the property and renting it out on, and also as a lender, which could be a great strategy if you're especially getting started and trying to get some more passive income. So one question I have for you, Jason, is taking a step back, you're talking to the seller initially, right? So before you go under contract. Now, a lot of folks may say, how do you communicate to them what this creative financing strategy is and how it benefits them? Were there any challenges that you initially faced or learning lessons that you gathered?
Yeah. So whenever you're talking about buying a property subject to, either to the seller themselves or to literally anybody who's within earshot, there are going to be naturally some objections. Like I get this all the time on the YouTube channel, people objecting to these things by leaving the mortgage in their name. So whenever you buy subject to, the mortgage is going to stay in place and you don't make any promises to pay it off, right? You say, I might, right? I might refinance at some point, or I might cash it out at some point, but I'm not making any promises that I will. The good news is, it's going to stay in your name and your credit's going to keep going up as long as, everything else in your life is going well, but the mortgage is going to get paid and that's going to reflect positively on you. The objections are about, okay, what problems are caused by this mortgage staying in my name? And all three start with a D, so they're really easy to remember. These are things that you're going to need to know how to talk your seller through and essentially overcome. I'll try to rattle through these really quickly so this doesn't turn into a 15-hour long podcast. But they all start with D, so they're easy to remember. The first is DTI, or which is short for debt to income. So whenever you go apply for a loan at a bank, they're going to want to look at what's called debt to income, the debt to income ratio. How much are you spending monthly in debt on the house, on car payments, on credit cards, versus how much are you making per month on your income? And if that ratio, that percentage doesn't fall below a certain threshold, they're not going to approve you for the loan, right? It depends on the lender, but usually I think somewhere it's around 40%, 30 in the 30s and 40s usually. So the question pops up, or can pop up. Okay, that sounds good, Jason. But if I leave the mortgage in my name, how am I going to go borrow more money later? Effectively, it's like, how's that going to affect my debt to income ratio? What if I want to borrow money on a car later? How am I going to go buy another house a year from now? So I promised I would try to keep this short. There's a long answer to that, but the simplest way is, when you are ready to borrow money again from the next person or next company, you're going to want to talk to their underwriters, right? Underwriter means the people who analyze the numbers and make a decision to approve or not approve. That's an underwriter. So a lot of times it's done electronically with AI now, but you're going to want to talk to someone who is actually looking at it and can say yes or no, and then ask them, what do you need from me, the person who's name is on the mortgage in order to prove to you that I don't make that payment anymore, so that you can remove it from my debt to income ratio and not count it against my percentage, so that I can get approved for my next loan, right? And usually, in most cases, it's a copy of like the lease statement. So if you're going to buy a property subject to, and then you're going to rent it out to someone else, then the person who sold you the house, whose mortgage is still in their name, they can send the underwriter of their new loan a copy of the lease agreement that you made with your renter to say, hey, see, this property is being rented out. I don't actually make this payment anymore. Or if you're going to do like a wrap loan or wrap note or wrap mortgage like we do, you can show proof that it's not coming out of their bank account, that it's being serviced by a third party person. You basically, again, it depends on the lender what they want to see exactly. But usually it's you just have to prove to an actual human being that this person does not make this payment anymore. And then the human being will go into the computer and remove that from the calculation of their debt to income ratio. It's only been a problem like one time. Actually, on this deal that I told you about, this first subject to deal, the guy, Josh, he went to go refinance his car a year later or whatever it was. This was not that long ago. And the lender that he wanted to use, they wanted like an arm and a leg and a DNA sample, and they wanted all this kind of paperwork to prove that Josh wasn't the one making the payments anymore. And it was asking too much. It was a bridge too far, as they say. And so I told him, I said, hey, I want to help you out. I'll get you whatever documentation you need. But what they're asking for is kind of invasive, and it's all personal information about us and who we are and how we bought the property. And it's not necessary to refinance a car loan. So I said, just call someone else. And so he did. And then they showed him the copy of the service agreement, or, basically that he's not paying the loan anymore. And boom, it's done. So it's usually never a problem. But if it is a problem, you just find another lender. So that's DTI. The second D is due on sale. Due on sale is basically a clause in a lot of mortgage statements that says if the property transfers names on the deed, we, the bank, have the right to call the entirety of the mortgage due, like right now. So let's say you owe $100,000 still on the house. You buy it subject to. And so now you're going to take over the payments for that $100,000. The bank finds out and they say, okay, now the whole mortgage is due on the sale of the house because you bought it, right? So that's kind of like the big scary boogeyman a lot of times when you're talking about subject to. This is the due on sale clause. Basically, again, I'm trying to like hurry through this, but it almost never happens, right? So it's not a big thing that you really need to worry about. I've not done a ton of subject to deals, but it's never happened to me. It's not happened to anybody that I know that do subject to deals all the time. And the few people I do know that it has happened to, out of the hundreds of transactions they've done subject to, there are a handful of ways that you can resolve the problem. First and foremost, you can just call the bank. A lot of times the due on sale gets called is because it's a smaller bank, and that's just kind of their policy. That's just what they do. You can sometimes just call them and talk to them and explain what's going on. And they go, oh, okay. Especially if you've caught up the loan. Like if you bought it in foreclosure, you're like, hey, we just, spent $15,000 like catching this thing up. Like we've been making on-time payments. Everything's still good here. Like, are we good? And a lot of times they'll just stop it, right? Other times, of course, you can sell the property. You can refinance the property. You can liquidate other things that you have and then pay that off. You can find a lender who will lend you the money to pay it off, and then you have X amount of time to pay them back. So, or the easiest way is to actually just kind of reshuffle the paperwork. It's basically to deed the house back to the original seller and then resell the house to yourself on what's called a contract for deed, so that the deed doesn't technically transfer names, even though you have control of the property. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but the long story short is, this is what you can tell your seller, by the way, is there are 6 or 7 ways that we can handle it on the rare one-off event that it actually happens. Due on sale. And then, so DTI, due on sale. And then the last one is default. Like, okay, Jason, you seem like a nice, trustworthy guy. But what happens if you stop making my payment for me, right? What if I deed the house over to you and I keep the mortgage in my name, and then you stop making the payment for me and I go into foreclosure and it turns into this big, big mess, right? And so, again, the shortest, simplest answer to this, without explaining a whole book here, is you defaulting on their loan is going to be the best thing that ever happens to them. It sounds like it's the worst thing that happens to them, but it's actually the best thing, especially if you write up the deal the right way, the ethical way, which is simply that I would say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if in the event that I get hit by a bus or, the Lord comes back and I'm raptured into the sky or something like that, and I can't make your payment anymore, what's going to happen is you are going to get the house back, right? The house is going to come back to you. You could either just take me to court, sue me. You can foreclose on me, depending on if it was like a subject to seller finance kind of thing, or we can just write it in to the paperwork that the house comes back to you if I start defaulting on your loan. When it comes back to you, it's going to come back to you usually with a higher property value because of appreciation, which means a house is worth more in the future just because it exists, right? The market goes up. Appreciation, they're going to owe less money on it. So when I took it over from you, we owed $100,000 on it, but I've been paying it down for 3 years and now it's only 95 or 90, right? So you actually have more equity. You're going to get it back in better condition because I came in and I fixed this and I fixed this, all the things we talked about, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, all the things that need to be fixed, right? I came in, I spent money, I fixed all of that. And if I'm renting the house out, it's going to have a tenant in it who's paying you money every single month as soon as you get the property back. So basically, if I default on your payment and you get the house back, I lose all my money that I put into the house. I lose all the debt pay down that I have been paying down for the past couple of years. I lose any upside appreciation that I would have actually got on the house. And I lose cash flow. So I lose everything. I lose the house. I lose all my money. I lose all my time. I lose all my effort. I lose all of the benefits of being a real estate investor, which is why I'm doing it in the first place. So if I default, it's the worst thing that can happen to me, but it's the best thing that can happen to you, right? And sometimes you can even say tongue in cheek, like, you're not hoping I default on the loan so that you can like make way more money on this transaction, right? It just reframes the whole thing as like, oh yeah, actually that I can see how that would actually be the best thing is if you you held the property for a few years and then had to give it back to me in much better condition. So DTI, due on sale, and what was the last one? Default. Those three things are the big objections usually to subject to.
Thank you
And
so
if you
much
need,
for that
if
level
that was
of
too fast for you, just go back and rewind and watch that again.
The theme is that there is some education that does go on when you go back and forth with the seller, which is encouraged, right? Like we don't want to just make a transaction, have them in the dark. And sometimes it's better to actually tell them these things ahead of time. These may be things that come up later rather than waiting for them to actually ask that question, right?
Right. Even if they don't bring it up because they're not thinking about it, you should definitely bring it up. Number one, it creates a lot of trust when you say, hey, here are the three big reasons why some people would definitely not want to sell their property subject to, like we're talking about. And their eyes kind of perk up. Yeah, tell me about that. And you're honest and you tell them the three things, but then you overcome those things with those answers I gave. And it builds a lot of rapport. It builds a lot of trust, and it prevents future unnecessary complications when they turn around to their uncle or their cousin or their mom or their dad and they say, yeah, I'm selling the property subject to. And those people have those objections. Well, what about your DTI? What about this due on sale clause? Well, what if he stops making the payment? Then they are armed to be able to explain, oh yeah, we talked about that and he would do this or this would happen or this would happen. And so it saves them from being in a situation where they feel like they got scammed or they're embarrassed because they don't have answers or they did something dumb and now everybody realizes I did something stupid here and they got egg on their face.
I'm a new real
So
estate
even if they don't bring it up, you definitely want to bring it up and talk through.
Understand the benefit on both sides, and I now have a good understanding of how it works. Well, the biggest problem is, where do I find these leads? Where do I find sellers who may be willing to sell their property or are going through the stress time period? Maybe I myself can't afford to scale and have like leads lists that are costing several $100s a month. Is there a way I could use social media or other tools in order to find these leads?
Yeah. So one of the great things about being connected with you is you are the data queen and you got all the data and all the ways to find these quote unquote motivated sellers. It's kind of, some people think it's like a dirty word, motivated sellers, but they are motivated to sell their house. So yeah, there are plenty of like paid for marketing ways to get in front of people that are going to be expensive, but are usually the most effective. And then there are like free marketing things, which is honestly all I've ever done, which are going to take more work and more of your time, right? They're free, but just know ahead of time it may take longer to work and it's going to require more effort. If you want to skip all of that and go straight to like the fast stuff, then you have to pay, right? But for me personally, all I've ever used is Facebook to find the deals. Again, I'm not doing 100 deals a year. I've only bought 6 or 7 houses now and done this, which has been good. Like we've made multiple 6 figures in profit just on these few houses, which is great. But so I'm sure eventually I'm going to max out the Facebook thing, but it's been a great way to get started. Essentially, one of the things that you're going to have to overcome as a new real estate investor is identifying yourself as a real estate investor, because there's that struggle of like, well, I haven't actually done any deals yet, so I can't go around telling people that I'm a real estate investor. The reason why you have to get over that pretty quickly is because that's a big part of finding deals, is just start telling everybody that you're a real estate investor. Or you don't have to use that language if you don't want to. You can say, I'm looking to buy an investment property. Off market. So, does anybody know anybody that needs to sell a house without a real estate agent? Sometimes people don't know what off market is or on market. Say, I'm looking to buy an investment property, something I can fix up, something that maybe needs work. Does anybody know anybody that's got a house they need to sell without a real estate agent? And just start posting that on your Facebook. Like, just start telling people that. And in addition to that, go to your local Facebook groups out here in Pennsylvania where we live. There's all sorts of like swap shop groups and flea market groups and buy, sell, trade groups, groups about this, groups about that, groups, a lot of local groups. And you just simply just be a regular person, like post in the group, and you literally are just asking a question. You're just saying, does anybody know anybody that needs to sell a house without a real estate agent? I want to buy a property that I can use as an investment property. Send me a message, or just, leave me a comment and I'll take a look at it, that kind of a thing. And so you're going to have to do it kind of at volume. So, you're not going to post in one group one time and then you're going to get $100,000 net profit deal. Probably not. Right. For me, it took, it depends on when you start counting, but it took me from like, all right, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to start posting in Facebook groups, to I got my first check off of my first deal, which was $32,000. That one we actually sold cash, which was nice. But we made $32,000 in profit on that very first deal. It took about 8 months, I think. Again, I have a day job. I have 5 kids. Like, I got a lot going on. I'm busy just like you guys are. So this is just on the side. This is just like, I get on for 5-10 minutes, posting some groups, and, eventually I get around to talking to the people who message me. So that's a part of why it kind of took so long, but it's very effective. And you'd be surprised how knowing somebody who knows somebody. Oh yeah, it's funny. My brother-in-law, he has the house at bop, 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 bop. Or, yeah, it's funny you ask. Not only do I know somebody, it's me. I have a house that my mom left me that's old and blah, blah, blah. We don't know what to do with it. Maybe you could come take a look at it. And so, yeah, if you just start posting in groups and just kind of being vocal and let people know that you are looking to buy an investment property, you'll start talking to people, most of which are not going to be good candidates because they want too high a price, or the house is not something you want to take on, or what have you. But eventually you're going to find like the perfect person with the perfect house in the perfect situation that you can help. That's a great opportunity for your first or second or third deal. And that's how I've done it. It's all been free. It's just been on Facebook, word of mouth. Eventually, it's probably a good idea to scale. I'd like to get into pay-per-click and all this kinds of stuff. But right now the Facebook thing's working and I still have my day job. So I'm good.
With little to no money down, with free resources to get leads, as long as they're willing to put the work. And you did allude to this earlier, they could scale even faster at times when they partner with others. So could you describe a little bit about what partnerships look like and why are they beneficial in this space?
Yeah. So when I say I have not spent any money on any of the properties that we've bought or resold, and we've netted multiple 6 figures now, I don't mean nobody has spent any money. I mean, I have not spent any money. So my partner slash mentor in these deals, he's been doing a lot of seller financing, wrap note deals for 30 years or something like that. Long time. He's a pro at it, and especially he knows these local markets out here in Pennsylvania where I am. And so basically, he provides a lot of the tutelage, the coaching, answering my questions, and he provides the funding. So whenever we need to actually spend money to hire a clean out crew, that first house I told you about where we netted 32,000 in cash, it was one of the worst hoarder houses you've ever seen in your life. When I was walking the house with the owner on the appointment, there was parts of the house where we literally, you couldn't see the floor. There was no floor. We're like walking on stuff and hoping not to roll an ankle, or like fall into something sharp, because it was like, it's kind of dangerous. It was so bad. But so we had to pay a clean out crew to come clean that thing out. And so like there are costs that are going to be incurred when you're doing real estate, but it doesn't have to be anything that you pay for. These subject to deals that I'm telling you about, we're taking over the mortgage. So when we close on them, the first one I told you about, we found our buyer first and closed, right? But it doesn't always happen that way. Another subject to deal that we did, we actually held the property for, I think, 3 or 4 months because the previous owners were smokers. And so the whole house would smell like smoke. They smoked in there for like 20 years. And it's just really hard to resell a house, even with seller financing and attractive terms, when the whole place just smells like smoke. It's an uphill battle. It's worth it to just rip out the carpets, paint the walls, and just do some work, right? Well, all that costs money. And so my mentor slash business partner is the one writing the checks. He's paying for the paint. He's paying for the carpet people to come in. He's paying for the clean out crew. He's paying the monthly mortgage while we're holding the property until we can finally resell it. Of course, it's all profitable because we net a much bigger profit on the back end. But he's the one who's been funding it. So and what's really cool is I'm pretty sure all of our deals that he still had money in, he's coming on as a partner, not as a lender. He's certainly not lending the money to me. So what can be confusing sometimes is the difference between a private money lender, someone who's lending you the money and they're saying, all right, Ariel, here, I'm going to lend you X amount of dollars. You're going to go do the deal. Just send me my monthly payments and we're good. They don't get any equity of the house. They don't get any of the upside. They don't get any of the rental income if you're going to rent it out, right? They're just lending you money in exchange for money, like a bank. A private money partner, as opposed to a private money lender, a private money partner, depending on whatever you agree with them, usually will lend the money to the project, but not to you personally. They are bringing the funding to the project while you are doing a lot of the leg work, right? So in my case, my business partner doesn't live in Pennsylvania anymore. He was born and raised here, did a bunch of deals here, and then he moved to Florida. He's like, I'm tired of the snow. I'm tired of the cold. I'm out of here. So he's in his late 60s now. So he's gone. So he's not actually here to do any of the work. So guess whose phone is ringing to like get stuff done? Guess who has to go to the house to make sure that the clean out crew did their job right? Like I'm doing a lot of the legwork. He's writing the checks. And so that's honestly those two things, his advice and coaching and mentorship, along with his bank account, have been what has unlocked me to be able to do these creative finance deals. And then we split everything basically 50-50 on the back end. So I'm putting up the time, the energy, the sweat equity, the work. He's bringing the coaching, mentoring, and checkbook. And then we do these deals together and split everything. So had it not been for him and his mentoring and his checkbook,
could only imagine
I would not have been able to do any of these
knowledge
deals.
He has, how much of help he has also been, because the way you talk, Jason, I would think you've been in this business for 5, 10 plus years. So kudos to you as well for gaining so much knowledge in a short span of time. And I can only imagine where your portfolio would go from here. But for those that want to be able to follow your journey, one of the great parts is that you're actually documenting it as you go along. So could you share a little bit more about your YouTube channel?
Sure. Yeah. For people who want to get jump started into all of this, actually on my YouTube channel, I give away a free guide called the REI Jumpstart Guide. It's just reijumpstart.com. It's just a simple PDF with like 7 free things that you can do to start getting leads and start going on appointments and start getting deals. reijumpstart.com. But yes, I also have been documenting now my deals, and like I have a lot of content on there about like subject to. I go into the weeds about creative financing and exactly what to do, exactly what to say to a seller when you're talking to them, the exact process to go from, posting on Facebook to what questions to ask, to having that conversation, to go in on an appointment, how to hold that appointment. So, the YouTube channel, I try to make it a wealth of resource for people. So you can follow me there. Just go, just
Excellent. Well,
do the
thank you
search
so
bar,
much, Jason, for your
Jason
time. We'll
Baca
be
Real
following
Estate,
your
and I'm sure
journey
it'll
and
pop
really
up.
appreciate all the knowledge that you shared.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.